Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today, we have the new Tier 9 Premium American Destroyer, the Halford, in port to review for you guys today. This is the first ever hybrid destroyer in game. And she is a real still historical ship. The Navy did fit a couple of Fletchers with float planes in order to test out the viability of using them as scouts for both the weather and for enemy targets. In real life, though, the planes were removed eventually, I think actually quite quickly, and the ships were returned to, I believe, pretty much their original configuration. But in-game, we have the hybrid version of the Halford, and that's the one that's currently available in the armory. The only way, well, there's two ways to get her right now. The first way is that you can purchase her for the American tokens. The other way is that she is available in the containers that they are selling right now as part of the Independence Day event. If you want to outright buy her without grinding out any of the free token missions, it costs you around $100-ish. If you want to grind out the tokens during the event, it will bring that down, I think, about $10 lower, something like that. And of course, the containers, well, you might get her in the first container, you might get her in your 100th container. But this will eventually be a coal ship, according to Wargaming. How long is it going to be until it gets into the armory for coal? I don't know. Brisbane still hasn't been added for coal, and it's been quite some time since she was released in her event. But we're just looking at her today, taking a look at how she performs in game. And we're going to go over her. Man, there's something going on with the textures in my game. Hold on one second, guys. Let me restart my client real quick. That seems to have fixed it. Yeah, I don't know if you guys noticed, but there was like these weird black squares in some parts of the ship. But anyway, we are looking at the Halford today. We're going to go over her stats and features, take her into battle, and give you guys a score on her 1 out of 10. And thank you guys. Oh, I do thank you guys for watching, but then let you guys know what I think about her, if she's worth the grind for either the coal or the outright cash they'll probably be offering her for in the store once she is released in full. But as always, 3D modeling guys, art department, knocked it out of the park. The ship looks great. Lots of nice and small details on the model. And, yep, there's that aircraft right there. Alright. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Halford. So, in terms of economic bonus, she does, of course, have the Tier 9 Premium Economy. So this is actually one of the best, actually the best one you can get in-game as far as the baked-in ship economy. So you get a 10% boost to your credits, 100% boost to your ship XP, Commander XP, and free XPs. If you do get her in the armory right now, you do get the... what do they call this? The Thunderbird camouflage, which is very over the top, but like the West Virginia one, it is a nice color combination, so I'll give them that. But again, I typically don't like those types of camos. I just run the standard, more historical camo, if you will. Alright, for her armor, I mean, it's a Fletcher, 19mm plating everywhere. You're going to get pinned by everybody and their mother, but I mean, there, if you want to see all that jazz. No Citadel, because it is a DD. Survivability, she has 17,100 HP base for her aircraft. Now, this is, at first glance, you might think it works like your normal hybrid aircraft. It doesn't. So, the way the attack aircraft work is that you actually do have 2 flights. If you look there on aircraft on deck, you have 8 planes available, which is weird because there's no deck. In fact, there's only 1 plane on the catapult. But the way that it works is that when you launch this 1 plane, 3 more will join it in the air. But also, you have 8 on deck, which means you have 8 aircraft in total. So you can have 4 in the air and 4 ready to go. So what happens is that when you enter the battle, you will see the 2-minute cooldown timer start on your aircraft. But in the background too, once that first set of 4 planes is done loading, it'll load another set of 4 planes. So if you wait 4 minutes, you'll have 2 full flights available for you, which typically is something that's pretty useful at the start of the battle, especially if you, like, say you're going to a cap and there's, like, a battleship out there or a cruiser, whatever. You send one flight out, you strike him, starts a fire, he puts it out. You can send another flight right out behind it and start another fire since you already burned his damage con, and it's useful for things like that. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself there. That's the review portion coming out. But yeah, you do get 2 flights in total. So, the aircraft, they are very squishy, only have 1660 HP per aircraft, speed 176 knots with a maximum speed of 216 knots, with an engine boost time of only 5 seconds. But it takes 10 seconds for that engine boost reload time to come back. You get 4 aircraft per squadron, and again, 8 on deck. They load in 2 minutes. They have a detectability range of 10 kilometers. They are equipped with the Tiny Tims, but they only get 2 rockets per ship, per plane. So, yeah, you get 8 rockets per attack, basically. They are the Tiny Tims. They can pin 68 millimeters of armor, and they do have a 33% fire chance and a maximum damage of 5,400. We'll talk more about that in the review section. For reference, Kearsarge has 15 rockets per run because she has 5 planes per run, and her planes have 3 rockets. The Halfords only has 2, but again, we'll talk more about that in the review section. So, guns, you do have the good old American 127s that you find in the Fletcher classes, and they have the base reload time of the Fletcher guns of 3.3 seconds. You might think, oh, so she didn't have to give up any DPM for her plane. Well, she gave up a whole turret. If you notice, there's only 4 of these 127mm guns on the Halford. They typically come with 5 for the Fletcher class. Now, I've actually played every single Fletcher in this game except for the Fletcher because I haven't grinded up to it just yet. The other one with 4 would be the Velos, but the Velos also has a faster base reload time on her guns. Let me go find her real quick down the other end of my carousel. But she has a much faster reload time because that's how they compensate her, of 2.2 seconds. So the Velos loses a turret, as you can see, but she gets a full second faster reload time. So, yeah, that's not happening here with Halford, even though she is still a tier 9 DD. She's still stuck with that 3.3 second reload time on just 4 guns. Now, it may not sound like it's a big deal, but, yeah. It is, as I'm trying to find my Halford. I keep parking these ships, and I keep losing them. I need to put an air tag on my ship so I don't lose them anymore, but there we go. And, of course, she gives up a rack of torpedoes and a bunch of AA as well for that plane. But the reload time, 3.3 seconds, 10.2 kilometer maximum range, maximum speed of 92 meters. Maximum damage on the HE of 1800, 5% fire chance per shell, 200 millimeters of HE pin base, and a velocity of 792 meters a second. And then the AP has a maximum damage of 2100 and initial velocity of 792 meters a second. Torpedoes, she does only have 1 rack of torpedoes. They're 1x5s. They reload in 100 seconds. They have a range of 13.5 kilometers, maximum damage of 19,000. Torpedo speed of 66 knots, and a detectability range of 1.4 kilometers. So they aren't slow. They're on the slower side, but they're not like, 53 knots. So they're not too bad, or 55 knots, whatever the Germans are. They're a little bit faster than those. They are pretty, punching with 19,000 alpha. Again, we'll talk more about those in the review section. She does get deck-mounted depth charge. She gets a pretty nice spread, 16 bombs per charge. A rating is 47, so you get 8x1 of the 20mm guns. You only have 1 dual-mounted Bofors, and then the main guns are dual purpose. Maneuverability, she has a maximum speed of 38 knots base and a rotor shift time of 3.9 seconds. Concealment base is 7.5 kilometers. For her equipment, she gets the good old American smokescreen that has a dispersion time of 127 seconds and an action time of 30 seconds. You get 3 charges of that base, and engine boost and DFAA share a slot here. So you have your choice of engine boost or DFAA. I take engine boost because the AA on this thing's so yeah. Alright. I'm going to go ahead, put my commander and module build back on the Halford because we did play her quite a bit on stream on Tuesday night. I will be streaming this upcoming Friday night as well on 5 p.m. U.S. Central Time. We'll probably be taking the Halford out bit then as well. But yeah, we can go ahead and grab my commander and my modules, and I'll meet you guys right back here. For the module build, I took main armaments mod 1. This gives us a reduced chance of the main battery guns becoming incapacitated. It increases their survivability by 50%, and the chance of them becoming incapacitated is reduced by 20%, as well as their repair time. Same with the torpedo tubes. With engine room protection, in order to decrease the chance of the engine room and steering gears being knocked out, and if they are, their repairing time is reduced by 20%, as is their chance of being knocked out. I went with the aiming systems mod 1 to give the shells a bit better dispersion, since we are missing a turret. So that reduces the dispersion of the shells by 7% and increases the torpedo tube traverse speed by 20%. I then went with the propulsion mod 1 to reduce reduce the time it takes us to get to full speed by 50% for the better jukes. And then I went with concealment system mod 1 to get our concealment range down as much as possible. Then I went with the main battery mod 3, which gives us a boost to our reload time by 12%. For the commander build, I used Halsey's own a bunch of other American Fletchers, and this build works for all of them, so why not the Halford, and that's what I'm running with here. So, I went with preventive maintenance so that we have an even further reduced chance of all those modules being knocked out by 30%, which is something you don't want to happen on DD. So this reduces the chances of our main turrets, torpedo tubes, steering gears, and engines becoming knocked out by a further 30%. And then I went with the last stand, which means that even if those systems get knocked out, they are still functional at a reduced rate. This is referring to the steering and engine gears. Then with Demolition Expert for an additional 1% fire chance on my shells. I went with the main battery and a specialist to get a further 5% reduction on the load time of the guns. Adrenaline Rush, so when we do take damage, we get a much faster reload time at the rate of 0.2% per percent of HP lost. And with DDs, of course, that you're going to get that down pretty fast. Then a Superintendent for another charge of that lovely American smokescreen and the engine boost. And Survivability Expert to get an additional 350 HP per tier. And then Concealment Expert for another 10% boost to our concealment. So now we have 20,250 HP for the Halford, which is a nice amount of HP to have on a DD. The guns now reload in 2.8 seconds and have a maximum dispersion of 85 meters. And our fire chance is now up to 7%. The torpedoes, nothing should have changed there. Well, they rotate a little bit faster now. Does it say the rotation speed of the tubes? Yep, 6 seconds now. That's just a side effect of the module. Maximum speed is 39.9 knots, just shy of 40 knots now. And our concealment's down to 6.1 kilometers. So that's the build I've been running on the Halford. We're going to go ahead and switch over to some gameplay footage, and I'll give you guys my 2 cents on the Halford. Alright guys, the voiceover Sea Lord here, and the Halford is an interesting ship because it's very close to a base Fletcher. You have the same reload time on the guns despite losing a turret, and you actually have less range than the Fletcher. That Fletcher has a base range of 11.8 kilometers, and you have, just over 10? So, yeah. You're trading a lot to get these planes, so I guess the planes is what we really need to spend most of the time talking about. Because you do trade a turret, you trade a set of torpedo tubes, and you trade a bunch of AA in order to get these planes. And that is, of course, the main focus of the ship, as it is a hybrid ship. So, the planes are really squishy. They only have 8 rockets per run. They're, of course, rocket planes, so you have a 5-second firing delay from, you clicking left mouse to the rockets actually firing. And that's a little problematic because the planes are so dang squishy. I'm talking even the Turpets can probably knock a plane or 2 out of the sky before you can begin your attack run. Which is suboptimal when you're playing a tier 9 ship with these planes, and you're going to be in tier 10 and super ship games with ships that have quite fearsome AA. So you can even forget about attacking anything if there's a Wooster nearby, or a Minotaur, or a Kid, or any of those ships that still have really good AA, because your planes simply aren't going to make it. And even if they do, it might just be 1 or 2 planes, which is literally 4 rockets or 2 rockets. Now, true, you don't really care if you lose all your aircraft because, well, you have infinite planes. But the thing is that you gave up a gun and a torpedo rack to get these planes. So they have to be putting in their work in order to earn their spot on your ship's deck. And in my experience, they don't really. The fact of the matter is you only have 8 rockets per run. And with the way that these rockets usually disperse themselves, 2 or 3 are going to hit something they can't pin, like a turret or the conning tower. And then, of course, to the firing delay, the ship's probably maneuvered a bit. So, of course, some are going to go in the water. And then a few are going to actually bite. With the Kearsarge, you have 15 of these rockets per run. So that's double the amount of rockets per run. Now, yes, with the Halford, you do have 2 flights ready to go, but you have to wait 4 minutes to get those 2 flights. Which means that usually at the beginning of the match, that's the only time it's really going to actually be a thing. It does help you keep kind of a better cadence throughout the match with your flights, because of course the second you launch one flight, you have another flight that's charging up. And if, let's say, like you launch one flight and then you don't use them for some time, and you get one flight back and you wait like another minute, that means that when you do launch that first flight, that second flight still only has a minute left to cool down. So by the time you get to the target, rocket them, and come back to your ship, that second flight's probably about ready to go. So it does help you in that way. But really the only time that the 2 flights are really obvious and really useful is right at the start of the match, typically if you haven't used them for the first 4 minutes of game. Other than that, they're just there with a bit of a boost to your plane cycle rate, again, if you're in the scenario that I just described. So they are, usually doing around, in my experience, 5K-ish per run, depending upon what you're shooting at. Obviously, if you're shooting at something like a battle cruiser with thinner armor and more spots for your rockets to bite into, yeah, they're doing like 8K, 10K maybe in a fire or 2, but typically most times it's around 5K from my experience. That's just what I've been seeing with this ship. So 5K every 2 minutes, and you're giving up a turret and a torpedo rack and a bunch of AA mounts for that. That's not that great. Now, a lot of players have been commenting, oh, well, it can spot for itself. Not really, because you drive the planes. It's not like the Tromp where you just say, hey, go bomb this area, then the AI take over and they go bomb that grid coordinate that you selected. You're controlling them, which means that you have to stay there until you at least begin the attack run. And when you begin the attack run, you can go back to your ship, but the attack run only lasts for about 5-ish seconds. And with the American shells and stuff, your first set of shells might get there by the time your planes have finished their attack. In the Kearsarge, it's a little bit more viable, and like the Issei too, because battleships only need a second to line up their shot and fire. DDs, of course, need time to get their guns in the action and get their damage through the shells, the volume of the shells hitting the target ship. So it can't really do that. It is additional spotting for your team, sure, if you want to sit there and sit on the planes and be getting no damage while you're doing that. But yeah, and you're already in a DD, something that's already excellent at spotting, so I don't know why you'd sit there and use the planes instead, especially again since you just sit there and do nothing. Now in like a competitive mode, like clan battles, tier 9 clan battles, if they allow this thing, that's different. But from random battles, yeah. The other thing is too that this ship is going to be a coal ship. Okay. So it's got a lot of competition for your coal. And the truth of the matter is that because they tried to bolt planes into this thing, they went from taking a excellent gunboat, which was a solid torpedo boat, and they made it a mediocre hybrid ship, and a mediocre torpedo boat, and now a mediocre gunboat. So, it's just trying to do too much with one ship, in my opinion. Because since it does have planes, it can't really have great guns. Can't have great torpedoes either because it does have planes on it. So, you're stuck with a mediocre gunboat and a mediocre torpedo boat most of the time. And then every 2 minutes you can launch some planes that'll do a mediocre amount of damage. So, yeah. I mean, the torpedoes, I wish I had 2 racks of them. That would have been great. I was getting some work in with the torpedoes. The guns, I wish I had another turret or a better reload time. If they had given her a better reload time, maybe not quite the level of the Velos, maybe like a 3-second flat reload time. That way you could, build into it and get it a little bit lower. That would have been nice, but they didn't. So, yeah, I mean, you're still a DD. You have to do DD things. So, you can't just sit there in the back like with the Kearsarge, or at the mid-range with Kearsarge, and still be fulfilling your role as a battleship, providing artillery support, and when you need to going into the fight, tankiness. You can't do that with the Halfords. That's not the awkward thing about it. You still have to do DD things, which means you need your full attention on playing the DD. But your main thing is that you can launch planes. But of course, when you launch your planes, you're not at your ship. DDs require a lot of active gameplay. You can't just sit there and be passive a lot of times, at least not for a good DD. So what winds up happening is that since you are a mediocre gunboat and a mediocre torpedo boat, when it comes time to do DD things, you're at a disadvantage because of that plane that's sitting on your deck. So like when it comes time to fight the other DDs for the cap, you're down a gun. You're a Fletcher that's down a gun. And downrange too. Granted, of course, with the American DD shells, they take forever to get beyond 12 kilometers anyway, but yeah. So, you have to actively be playing for that. And if you want to use your planes, you have to be very risky with it and launch them from like inside the cap while you're contesting the cap if there's like an island in between you and the other DDs. Or if you're in the smoke screen, you can launch the planes. But, again, it's just not very conducive. It doesn't mix well, in my opinion. This hybrid ship setup that they have in the game and DD play. The best thing would be like with the Trump, where you can just, do the Dutch thing and call in the airstrikes and then, just have the AI planes fly over and just bomb that grid coordinate. That's a lot better because you can still, be doing DD things. But the Halford, you have to give up, a couple minutes of your time to go fly these planes around and find a target to strike. So it just doesn't mesh very well, and it leads to some pretty, well, I'd say pretty underwhelming games. But I was still coming top of the leaderboard with the Halford. As far as like the damage I was doing, the way I play the Fletchers is that, especially the Halford because of the gun range, is that I go to the cap, I take the cap, and I try to just defend the cap from all the other DDs that want to take it from me. That's typically what the Fletchers are very good for, and the build that I run on most of them works on pretty much all the Fletchers because they're some variant of that. The Halford, I mean, with a 10-kilometer range, not a whole lot you can do besides fight other DDs or get very close to ships. Pray to God there's not a radar ship nearby, and get farming, which, I mean, it does okay, because again, still has 4 of the American 127s with a longer-ish reload time, but I mean, it was doing that, and I was usually coming near top of the leaderboard because of, I was playing the objective, taking the cap, and shooting and sinking other DDs with it. But in like a one-on-one DD fight, you better hope you're going up against one of the torpedo boats, not one of the gunboats, because it's got just enough gun power to where it can still kind of walk over the torpedo boats. But if you run to another gunboat, you're going to have a bad time with the Halford here, and your planes can't help you in that situation. So, yeah. Overall, it's mediocre. So, 5 out of 10. in my opinion. Obviously, it's my video, it's my opinion, but some people think I'm like stating the law here when I give my ratings. But yeah, 5 out of 10. Get a black. It's going to be a coal ship. Black's a coal ship. Black is infinitely better than this thing. Get a black. That's my advice to you. Definitely not worth the $100 or so you have to fork over to get it outright right now. Not worth the reduced price if you do grind through the combat missions and get the American tokens, whatever the hell they're called right now. Not worth any money in my opinion at all. It's an oddity. I get it's a historical ship, and the ship did have planes on it in real life. They weren't used in this way, but it did have planes on it in real life. But yeah, it's a novelty. I don't think these types of hybrid DDs will be successful in the future if they do decide to go forward with this design. But yeah, it's just they took a good gunboat, a solid torpedo boat, and turned it into a mediocre gunboat and a mediocre torpedo boat, all for the novelty of having some mediocre planes on it. So it's a ship full of mediocrity that isn't worth your hard-earned cash, in my opinion. So guys, it's my 2 cents on the Halford. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. One way to 50,000 subscribers. We are getting very close to that goal, thanks to you guys, and I cannot thank you guys enough for that. Hope you guys have a wonderful Thursday, wonderful rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.